Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dory Scullerode. I'm the head of marketing for the Americas for the Q Company. I just want to do a quick sound check. Can everybody hear me? And I know that you're on mute, but if you can write in the chat box that you can hear me, that would be fantastic. Oh, yep, I'm seeing a couple of yeses come in. Perfect. Thank you. So today's webinar is being presented by Oleg Yadrov, on the do's and don'ts of QML. We're going to get started in a few minutes. I want to wait for sure till the top of the hour. We still have several people that are joining the call. But in the meantime, I wanted to just let you know that we will be recording today's webinar. And over the next couple of days, you will also receive an email from us of the recording, as well as a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation that Oleg is going to be presenting. I want to also let you know that Oleg is going to be doing live examples using the Qt Creator. So if we run into any technical difficulties, that is just that's of course a risk that we take when we're running live. So if we have to reboot the Qt Creator, please bear with us. You know, it's a situation where it always works until you need to show that it works, and that's when it wants to act up. So anyways, let's give it a couple more minutes before we get started. So let's see, it's about 12 o'clock. Actually, you know what? Why don't we go ahead? So let me turn it over to Oleg. Oleg, if you want to introduce yourself, and we can get started. Thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Do's and Don'ts of QML webinar. My name is Oleg Yadrov. I'm a consulting engineer at the Qt Company. I've been working with Qt framework since Qt version 4.7. I have worked on many different projects made with Qt Quick technology, including desktop, mobile, and embedded applications and games. In my practice, I've seen many times how different people did the same mistakes while working with QML. Today, I want to draw your attention to the most common mistakes I noted, and I hope all participants will learn something new and useful. This webinar is intended for developers who already have some experience with QML. What we are going to talk about today is different item positioning methods, such as absolute position, anchors, positioners, and layouts, and when it makes sense to use each of them. Then, how exactly items Z property works, why stacking order is important, what is visual parent concept in QML. Later, I'll explain the difference between focus and active focus properties, how you can effectively manage focus in your Qt Quick application using focus, scope, and key navigation items. Last topic for today is going to be ways of loading QML. We'll go through all available methods of loading QML documents. As Dory said, the participants can ask me questions during the session. I'll address them at the end. And by the way, the webinar is being recorded and will be shared within a few days. Now, let's get started.
I'm so sorry, Oleg. Let me just, one other quick thing, folks, and I'm sorry to interrupt this.
Okay.
In the right-hand section is the GoToWebinar taskbar. In that area, there is a chat box, as well as an Ask Questions box. If during today's webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in there. And as Oleg just mentioned, we will go through those as many as we can at the end of the webinar. All right, thank you. Back to you, Oleg.
All right. So for the first topic, I prepared a custom window component with a grid on the background, so it's easy to see where each item is positioned. Okay. When people just start learning QML, probably the first thing they discover is that items can be placed at specific X and Y coordinates on the screen by setting their X and Y properties. The X-axis grows to the right and the Y-axis grows downwards. Okay. This is the next example. An individual item's position is specified in terms of its parent coordinate system. As you can see, the global position of the rectangle on the scene is 200, 200 now. A brief digression. Not so many people know, but absolute position can also be set via transform property like this. Yeah, transform translate. And it does the same. All right. This gives us the same result as if we just set x and y. Now, what happens when we set x, y, and translate at the same time? All right. The values simply add up. So, for example, if I set both x and y to -50 and translate to 200, the result position will be 150 and 150. Let's move to the next example. Okay, unlike x and y properties that obviously can hold only one value each, the transform property holds a list of transformations. And in case if I specify more than one translate item, all the values will sum up with each other and the x and y. I personally have never seen anybody using transform and translate in real code, but let's just remember it's possible to set a position this way, because I'll refer to this in a few minutes. All right, for the next example, we'll need two code editors. Five and 106. So things get hairy when people start using bindings on x, y, width, and height to set relative position and size instead of using encores, which are designed specifically for that purpose. Even though it's possible to use bindings for that, it's better not to. Encores are more efficient. So this code on the left may be rewritten with encores, and it gives us the same result. For those who have never worked with encores, the QQuick encoring system allows you to define the relationships between the encore lines of different items. Each item can be thought of as having a set of 7 invisible encore lines: left, horizontal center, right, top, vertical center, baseline, and bottom. By specifying multiple horizontal or vertical encores, you can control the size of an item, like here. The rectangle stretches when I resize the window. Well, and it stretches in both cases. Because encores.fill is equivalent to connecting all 4 directional encores. So this could be replaced with encores left, parent left, encores right, parent right, encores top, parent top, instead of encores fill. Well, and so on. If I defined either only left encore or only right encore, width of this rectangle would not change. By the way, you can only encore an item to siblings or a parent. Let me show you one more example. All right, so encores.centerIn provides a convenient way for one item to be centered with another item, and is equivalent to connecting horizontal center and vertical center encores. So instead of doing encores centerIn, I could do encores horizontal center, parent dot horizontal center. Same for vertical. Okay. Oops. What if you want to arrange a few items relatively to each other, say in a row? Despite it can be done with encores, it would be problematic to do it that way. You would need to give a unique ID to each item and then set all the encores accordingly, as I did it in this example number 109. Complexity increases with number of items, especially if you would need to change order of items at some point. It's much easier to arrange items using positioners. There are 4 different positioner items in QQuick: row, column, grid, and flow. Items placed in a positioner are automatically positioned in some way. For example, a row positions items one by one horizontally, column vertically, grid positions its child items in grid formation, and the flow item positions its child items like words on a page, wrapping them to create rows or columns of items. Okay. So, all right, this is good, but positioners only change items position and not size. And what if you want a few items to be arranged in a row and resized so they would take all available width? Again, that could be done with bindings, but there is a better way to do it. QQuick layouts are a set of QML types used to arrange items in the user interface. In contrast to positioners, QQuick layouts can also resize their items. So let me just run this example again. All the rectangles resize, stretch proportionally. All right. Also, layouts allow you to specify minimum, maximum, and preferred size, and then items will be stretched accordingly to satisfy these settings. This hardly could be achieved with bindings, encores, or positioners. So the green one takes twice more width than 2 others. Encores, positioners, and layouts, they all function by overriding items' X and Y properties. This is why, even though X and Y values are specified in this example, they are ignored, but the final position is affected by the transform property. Okay. And this is a quick summary. Don't use bindings on X, Y, width, and height properties. Don't set X on left, right, or horizontal center encores at the same time, because X will be overridden in this case. Same applies to Y and vertical encores. Also, you should never use left, right, or horizontal center encores for items in row layout, grid, or grid layout. Same for vertical case, since this would conflict with the goals of positioners and layouts. Let's move forward, and our next topic is draw order. Say we have this code that draws 4 cascaded rectangles, and we want to move the green one on top of all other rectangles. I've seen so many times how people set very high Z values with intention to place a specific item on top of everything else and wondered why it didn't have any effect. No matter what Z value we set to the green rectangle in this code, it will stay below blue and yellow ones. Well, of course it will, because unlike many 3D modeling tools, in QML, Z property sets the stacking order only of sibling items. Items with a higher stacking value are drawn on top of siblings with a lower staking order. Items with the same staking value are drawn bottom up in the order they appear in QML document. Items with a negative staking value are drawn under their parent's content. So to move the green rectangle to the top layer, we have a few options. First thing we could do is to bring all our rectangles to the same staking level and set green one's z property to something bigger than 0. Second, we can move declaration of the green rectangle to the bottom of the QML document. And then third, we can change green rectangle's visual parent. The concept of visual parent in QQuick is separate from but related to the concept of the object parent within the QObjectParent hierarchy. All QML objects have an object parent which is determined by the object hierarchy in which the object is declared. When working with the QQuick module, the item type is the base type for all visual items provided by this module, and it provides the concept of an additional visual parent as defined by an item's parent property. Every item has a visual parent. If an item's parent property value is null, then item will not be rendered in the scene. In this example, we can reparent the green rectangle to the second root rectangle. Of course, we also should not forget to change its position because, as I mentioned in the previous topic, an individual item's position is specified in terms of its parent's coordinate system. All right, here I'll need to bring this file tree. Okay, so reparenting is a useful technique and used widely in QQuick and QQuick controls modules. I'll show you how it can be used for making a custom dialog item. If in the root QML document we have an empty item on top of the stack queue, this dialog overlay, later we'll be able to set that item's ID as visual parent of our dialog. This is our custom dialog implementation. Here we set parent. Regardless of where in the screen now we define a custom dialog item, it will be rendered on top of everything else. So I can move it to the bottom of the QML document. It will not change anything. Let me show you the result. Yeah, and going back, same thing. I didn't look into QQuick Controls 2 source code, but I'm pretty sure this is similar to how dialogues in QQuick Controls 2 are implemented. Now, to debug draw order in your app, you can set QSG underscore visualize environment variable to overdraw, which will visualize all items in 3D to highlight overdraws. Opaque items are rendered with a green tint, while translucent items are rendered with a red tint. The bounding box for the viewport is rendered in blue. Opaque content is easier for the scene graph to process and is usually faster to render. You can set that environment variable either in your C++ code, as I did it in this example, actually not this one, but yeah, here, using QPutEnv function. Or you can use Qt Creator's run settings. Okay. Please remember that row order depends primarily on the staking order and secondary on Z property value. Therefore, proper structuring of QML documents is very important. And if you need to use Z property, then don't set it to unnecessarily high values. I think using incremental integer numbers from 1 to number of layers on the scene for Z property would be good advice. And then you can always set QSG visualize environment variable to overdraw to debug layers in your application. And our next topic is focus. Okay. When a key is pressed or released, a key event is generated and delivered to the focused QQuick item. People are often confused by the fact QQuick item has two focus-related properties, one of which is called active focus and another one just focus. Focus property, this one, calls whether the item has focus within the enclosing focus scope. If true, this item will gain active focus when the enclosing focus scope gains active focus. In this example, item will be given active focus when the application is launched because window behaves as a focus scope. Active focus is a read-only property that indicates whether the item has active focus. If active focus is true, either this item is the one that currently receives keyboard input, or it is a focus scope ancestor of the item that currently receives keyboard input. Usually, active focus is gained by setting focus on an item and its enclosing focus scope objects. In the following example, the item will receive active focus right after launch because, well, as I said, Windows content item is a focus scope. Even though setting focus property to true works in simple cases like this, that doesn't mean you can always give active focus to an item by just setting focus property. In fact, the proper way to give active focus to an item is to call forceActiveFocus function on the item. Okay. So I'm calling forceActiveFocus, and one of these rectangles receives active focus. Let me just show you very quick the implementation of. Actually, oh, this is it. Sorry. Just remember that the focus property is always used in conjunction with focus scope item, and the active focus property is used to query whether the item is currently receiving keyboard input. So here I'm using active focus property to change rectangle's color from light gray to green. Example 302. Okay. This example demonstrates what exactly focus scope item does. In main.qml file, I create an instance of fancy text input field component, which should gain active focus after the application launches. If the root item in fancy text input field is just item, I will not be able to input anything after I run this application. And where is it? 302. Yeah, this is the implementation of fancy text input field. So let me launch this app. Now it's running and I cannot input anything. But if I replace item with focus scope, it will propagate active focus to the text input item, and there it is. Now I can input text. Okay, we need two code editors again. I hope the text size is big enough so you guys can read it. 303 and 304. Okay. If you want to move focus in your app on tab or arrow keys presses, you can handle the appropriate key events and manually call forceActiveFocus as it's done in code on the left side. However, QML offers a more efficient and declarative way to do it. You can see it on the right. Using key navigation is all you need to do. Using key navigation, all you need to do is to specify the item that should gain focus when an arrow or tab key is pressed. It also checks if target item is enabled, and if it is not, then focus will not go to nowhere. In case with manual events, you would need to do an additional check every time. And again, I'll show you that the code on the left and on the right, they both do the same thing. Okay. So that was it about the focus in QML, and I'd like to recap that you should not confuse focus and active focus, and it's better to use key navigation rather than explicitly call forceActiveFocus. To execute and display a QQuick application, you need to have at least 3 things: an instance of QQmlEngine class, an instance of QQuickWindow, and a root QQuick item. A QQuick window always has a single invisible root item containing all of its content. To add our root QML item to the window, we need to reparent it to the content item. Okay. If you want to have the ability to control your root Windows properties from QML, it's also possible to use QQuickWindow module and define the root window directly in QML, as I do that in this example. Yeah. Of course, then you don't need to create a QQuickWindow in C++. So in C++, all we do is define a QQmlEngine and create a QQml item. Actually, QQml component, and then QQuickWindow from that component. Okay. There is also a convenient class available called QQuickView, which combines QQmlEngine and a QQuickWindow and acts as the root window. It's better not to use this class if your root QML component is a window, because if you do, you'll get an extra window which you don't need. In this case, I'm using for2 item as my root QML item, so I get only one window created. Okay. In Qt 5.1, another convenient class was added called QQmlApplicationEngine that allows to load an application with a single line of code. There is one condition: your root QML component must be a window. This is probably the most common way of loading QML documents these days. This is for 3, right? For2 on, excuse me, even though the result is the same, I want to make sure it works. Yes, it does. Okay. In Qt 5.3, Qt 5.3 release brought QQuickWidget class that makes embedding QML content into widget-based applications very easy. You will probably not need it unless you are porting one of your old widget-based applications to QML. Yeah, same green rectangle. Okay, and this is just a short review of how you should select the method of loading QML which would work best for you. Create QQmlEngine and QQuickWindow manually if you prefer to have full control over your app. Use QQuickView if you prefer to create the root window on C++ side. Use QQmlApplicationEngine if your root QML component is a window. And use QQuickWidget if your application is widget-based. All right, this brings us to the end of the webinar. Now we have time for a few questions.
Great, thank you, Oleg. So I do have a few questions from everybody, or from the group. So Alan asked, does transform throw any signals? And additional to that, he said, similar to how setting XY would.
I believe transform property itself does not throw any signal because it holds a list of transformations. Let me get back to an example that contained it. Must be this one. Yeah, so I believe transform does not throw any signals, but translate items should. Let me just check it. Yeah, translate items do have on X changed and on Y changed signals.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Joe is asking, do you have any advice on how to handle C++ enums in QML? He said, I find that I often just use a set of string constants because I just can't seem to get the QML enum access right.
I'm not sure I understood the question. Could you please repeat it?
Sure. Do you have any advice on how to handle C++ enums in QML?
Well, I believe the documentation covers that very good. So if you just try to Google C++ enums in QML, you'll get all the information you need.
Okay, perfect. Bridget said that, she said, thanks, in big capital letters, for the Z-axis explanation. She said, now I see what I was doing wrong recently.
Oh.
And then, let's see, I've got one other question. Bear with me one moment here. Frank says, whenever I put items in a layout, I add an invisible rectangle. He said, I call it spacer, to fill the rest of the space of the layout. It allows me to push the items against each other and fill the empty space in the layout. Is there a more elegant way to do that?
No, actually, it is the best way to do it. I did the same in my QML creator application.
Okay.
So you just put an empty item and set its fill width or fill height property to true, and then it behaves as a spacer in QQuickWidgets.
Okay, great. I've got one last question from David. If a child of a focus scope has active focus, can key events be caught by the focus scope itself?
Yes, of course. If you don't set key events accepted property to true, then the event will be forwarded to the enclosing focus scope, where you can catch it and handle as you want. Actually, I demonstrated it in one of my examples today. Is my screen still?
Yes, you are still.
Okay.
Yep, you're still sharing.
So let me just show it to you. And not here. Yeah, here you see. In each of my rectangles, I handle only left and right key events. And here in the focus scope, I handle Qt key down events, and I move ActiveFocus to the bottom focus scope. So I probably should have set event.accepted to true here, but I didn't do it. Well, yeah, it's a good practice to do it like this. All right.
Terrific. Okay. So I want to thank you, Oleg, very much for your time. There's a see here that we have a lot of comments that this was very insightful. Your examples were done very well. It has given everybody a lot better insight of how to use QML better. So at this point, folks, we have come to the end of the webinar, but I want to encourage everybody that if you have additional questions, or if you, with regards to potentially a project that you're working on, or if you are looking to utilize Qt to a higher degree, please go to qt.io, which is the Qt company's main website. There are areas in there that you can find additional white papers if you're interested. There are also areas where, if you're looking for somebody to get back to you, that can talk to you from a consulting perspective, or if you would like to purchase the commercial licenses that we have. So I want to thank everybody for their time today. I'm really excited that so many of you were able to join us. Again, I will be sending this out in a few days or a couple of days, the recording as well as the presentation. Thank you, everybody, and Oleg, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, and have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.